All right, I have 4 o'clock on the nose, so we'll get going. Welcome to this week's Sandpile. This week we're going to talk about module strengths, weaknesses, and enhancements. But first, we'll go through a bit of news and updates here. On the BC Academy, there's a new tutorial there about using web form autoresponders for messaging. And the simplest example I can give there is if you had something like a real estate site, say, or something for sale, and you wanted people viewing a property to be able to contact a realtor. So using the autoresponder for the form, you can actually get an email sent to that person. So that's released on the BC Academy. That should be tomorrow. On the BC Gurus side, there is a new tutorial called 5 Quick Admin Tips and Tricks by Scott Reynolds. So learn how to speed up your time in the admin with these 5 quick admin tips and tricks. I haven't seen that one yet. I haven't watched it yet. I've seen it. So I'm looking forward to that. And I saw that that was released already. On the App Store, I just about a half hour ago got an email from Code Production announcing an open beta for their Nice editor, which is a Simply Nice in-context editor for any of your BC websites. So it looks like during the open beta, they've got it marked as $0 per month and a $39 US dollar setup fee. And then after this month, they're going to run this open beta for about a month. And then after that, they're going to review the pricing model, and they'll likely go with a monthly subscription model. So it's a chance to try it out. And I think if you're on their email list, they even said the first 20, they're even going to waive the setup fee. So they're after input. They're after folks to tell them what they like, what they don't like, and what they can improve upon. And it looks like it's going to be just a great tool, and not just for their own templates. It looks like you can have this editor installed for any of your BC sites. So something pretty cool there. There is some scheduled system maintenance coming up. That's under system updates on the forum. And it looks like February 23rd is the schedule for the EU and the US. And it looks like it already happened in Australia on February the 9th. So minimal impact there, but you should be aware if you had trouble doing something in the Australia data center, that might have been why. And if you have some plans for making some changes, maybe stay away from February the 23rd when they're going to be doing the EU and US data centers. All right, let's see what else we can have. Okay, so let's talk about these module strengths, weaknesses, enhancements. And I want to start out with a reminder that this is not meant to be like a dream session where we list out the things we want BC to add and change in the modules. We've been down that road. We've covered that track. They've made it very clear what they're going to be focused on this year, which is compliance and overall system security. They're not looking at modules, and there's really no point in compiling a list and sending it to them. Although, if you want to, please go ahead, send it directly to Magda, send it directly to Kristinel, but this is not necessarily the forum for that. So what I'm looking to do is talk about how we work with those modules and discuss ways we found to overcome limitations or ways to use modules in unexpected ways that allow us to achieve what our end clients want. So hopefully through discussing it here, we can help the community figure out what we can and what we can't do with modules. So that's my intent on this. So I wanted to start off with blogs, and just for the folks that are here, I like the blog module. Lots of folks will use web apps for the blog, for a blog. I just prefer the blog module. I think there's such power in a lot of the built-in stuff. And I found a couple ways to overcome the minimal challenges that I've had with it. In general, what would folks say to that? Maybe if you could just put blog module or web app, maybe throw a vote in the chat session there. A straw poll, as it were. Yeah, so the first few replies there, we're starting to show the blog module. So some of the things I like about it is categories and tags, throw them in the sidebar. It's super easy with the module. If you want to put that into a liquid container, you can iterate through that stuff and really do some nice manipulation on it. I tend to use tags, not categories, and I'll talk about that when we get to limitations. And I try and just stay with the one thing. I try not to use both. I do like the featured image now that they put it in. I like that you can have multiple blogs, and I do like the meta tags that are in there. And of course, you do need some fallback in that. So I tend to use. I'm just going to put my fallback in the chat here. I'm going to try anyway. And I will try and include this in a document, a resource document that you can download later. But that's what I tend to use for my fallback. So if there's a blog post meta title, use it. Otherwise, use the title of the post. If there's a meta description, use that. Otherwise, get one out of the description. Now that I look at that, that's not really a fallback. I grabbed the wrong code there, so I'll grab the right code for a fallback. That's really just the meta tags, and that does rely on your end user to actually be using the SEO meta tag meta description. Sorry about that. I grabbed the wrong code while I was preparing for this. So what about the weaknesses? Actually, I'll ask, does anybody else have anything that they feel strong about in the blog module that they like, that they found works really well for them? Okay. So for weaknesses, I find when I first started using it that the layouts can be pretty confusing. So you have the overall, then you have the post list, and then you have the post detail. And there's also a list module layout in there, and it can be a little bit confusing until you figure out what's going on. Just that overall is, and you can actually take the overall and put that on a page template, or the overall itself can be the page template. It can be a bit confusing and daunting. So if that's a challenge for you, I recommend you go to BC Gurus or BC Academy and do some research on just do a search for blog, and you should come up with several tutorials that'll show you how to use those layouts. But that's the one of the downsides. Mary says images don't automatically show in the summary layout, but there's a solution with Liquid for that. Yeah, you have to actually put the featured image in there and put it where you want it, and educate your client on how big to make it and all the rest of that, or use some of the automated thumbnail generators for that. So Barbara, for limitations, Barbara found you can't put blog posts on different pages by category. I guess my workaround for that, Barbara, is I use tags, and then there is an output I can say, show me all the blog posts with this tag. And that's the way I work around that. Yeah, Mike says it's a bit tricky again with the layouts, where you can have access to the BC tag values and where you can add things such as meta tags. Generally speaking, meta tags go in the detail. That's the only place that they'll show up. They won't show up in a list view, and they won't show up on the overall page. They got to show up on the detail view. So if you do wrap them in an HTML and a head tag, BC will, there's a script on the detail layout that will move those meta tags up into the head of the page. So something about paging. So fair enough. I'd have to, it's case by case, I guess, Barbara. You must be trying to do something a little bit trickier than I'm doing. Barbara said, yes, there's something about the page links that she can't do. So she had to use a web app, which is fine. A web app makes for a decent blog module as well. I've certainly done both. I just tend to default to the blog module because there's so much stuff built into it. And of course I have some workarounds that I'm comfortable using. So one of the other limitations is importing posts. The import tool is is not good. I've rarely, if ever, been successful with it, and there is no other alternative other than copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. So that certainly is a limitation. Has anybody found a way to work with that import module, or found an easier way to import posts, or any way to import posts? I'd be surprised at this point if it's something. If there is something, I'd be surprised to find out about it. So Mike suggests BC backup. So would you have the blog posts in a CSV file and then use BC backup to restore them? Is that the idea, Mike? And nice to see you, Aaron. Thanks for turning your camera on. It's just you and me today. Yeah, I'm looking at you, man. Any clarification on that, Mike? Is it like use BC backup to restore a CSV file that you've prepared, or is there some other trick there? An XML file. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I'm gonna check with Karim on that. XML import BC backup. That could be a handy thing to figure out. Yeah, Sean indicates before the API was available, he wrote a browser extension to automate and create blog interface and load the posts. I actually think I remember that, Sean, from a while back. So have you used that lately? While he's replying there. So importing posts, I'm going to, I like the idea that if I can use an XML import to get those posts in there, I certainly have a use case for that. So I'll bring that back to the group here if I can figure that one out. Yeah, so Sean indicates he only had one client that really needed that, and the rest they don't have much content. So the projects I tend to work at, I tend to get with Chicago Digital are, we do work for other agencies, and they're converting sites. So they'll have sites with have 100 or 200 blog posts that they need to move across, and that's the challenge. So they tend to have me build them in web apps because they don't want to have to import them or copy and paste them in one at a time. So while I like to use the blog module, they make me build it in a web app, and that's okay, but there's limitations there too, in my opinion. So anyway, I'll see if I figure that out. I'll bring it back to the group here. Now, also, they were kind enough to put that featured image in, but then there's no alt tag, which is disappointing. I tend to just use the blog post title. I just throw that in as the alt tag for the image, and call that good enough. Does anybody else have another workaround that they use? So while you're doing that, I'm just going to share my screen here. What I wanted to talk about was authors. That's one of the other limitations, but I use a bit of a workaround, which I'll talk about. So normally your author is limited to cited mins, and that counts against the number of mins that you would have. So if you want more authors, you have to purchase more admin memberships. So what I do is build an author web app, and then I use tags on the blog post. So this Joe Brown or Lauren Holiday will actually be a tag. I use a bit of liquid to keep the tags from showing up in the tag cloud. And then I also, so basically I go get all the names from the web app, and if one of those names matches one of the tags in the tag cloud, I just remove it. What that allows me to do is put the author here, get some nice things like pictures and those kind of things in bios. And then I can link to this author. So here's this author, and I can see all the posts that author has written. So that's my workaround for this whole author thing. And by web apps, I can have as many items as many authors in the blog post web app or the author web app as I want. But again, that allows me to do things like have a Twitter handle, a bit of an introduction, and of course an image and those kind of things. So that's how I work around that. I wonder if anybody else has another workaround. Okay, and I'm just catching up on the notes here. So Barbara says that she makes an alt tag field and it does only work in web apps. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. If an alt tag for an image is critical, then yeah, you're faced with a web app for sure. So Aaron, he has used the blog module for clients who don't want to buy into the gold plan as kind of a ghetto web app. So maybe using the blog module as a portfolio or a testimonial app. That's, like he says, it's got some limitations, but it can work. I can see that. I can see that. That's an interesting use case for it. So has anybody else used something similar for this whole author thing, where you have an author web app and I use the tags? This Lauren Holiday will be a tag, and I basically use that to go get that web app item, basically. Hopefully I'm making sense there. There's one of two ways you can do it. You can either do a search where name equals that, or you can categorize. So in the blog post, in the web app, in the blog author web app, you would categorize that person as a blog author with a name of Lauren Holiday. And then you can do a search web app, anything categorized as blog author, and you can insert the name Lauren Holiday in there. And that's the way I'm doing it here in this particular template. So these last 2 or 3 templates that we did are using that functionality. Maybe I'm gonna, since I probably have confused things. So we have an author's web app, and you can see Lauren Holiday. And if I look at the actions under classification, no, that's not how I did it. So in this case, I must have done a search. So I'm doing a search where author name equals Lauren Holiday. Nah, you know what? Because there's not that many authors, I've got a for loop on that page that basically loops through all the authors and looks for, it just says, when you find an author name that's the same as that, then go get the rest of that information. Sorry, I probably confused you there. So when I'm outputting that blog post, when it gets to the author section, I've got a tag at the top. It loops through and finds out. It goes through each of the tags. So Asia, backpacking, active, travel tips, and Joe Brown will be another one. And it compares all those tags to another list of the authors. If it finds a match, it strips it out of these tags, and it also gets the rest of his information. It says, oh, well, Joe Brown, I've got his profile, I've got his image, and all the rest of it. Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry if I confused you there. Now, Phil uses a connector web app to do that. And that can work. I know Scott Reynolds is a big proponent of the connector web app. I just, for this particular use case, because I can't imagine you having that many authors here, even if you had 20, like to loop through 20, 30, even 100 authors is not going to be a big deal for a liquid loop. And on the blog side, I go to the module just to close the loop on that. You can see here these tags. There's Lauren Holiday, there's Joe Brown. Those are just the tags. So you can see all those names are just entered here. You just pick the author. So a little bit of training. You gotta, these got to look like names. You could prepend these with author : or something, and then use some more liquid to kind of filter that stuff out. But I think a name is a name and a tag is a tag. And I stay right away from categories. The reason I stay away from categories is because if you're using them for anything else on your site, like we are here, accommodations, FAQs, payment, it can become real confusing as to which ones are for the blog. I wish you could limit these to just blog categories, but you can't. Okay, so that's one of the ways I handle this whole author profile. If they wanted to build that out, something beyond just a name, or they want to have more than one or two authors, this allows them to have as many as they want. Guest authors, doesn't much matter. It allows us to put some nice profile information in, like pictures and bios, and you could have any number of social media links there too, of course, because at that point it's a web app: email, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So that's how I work around that particular weakness. Any more comments on the blog module? Let's see, what does Mike say? I guess you can basically use web apps as extenders for any module, but it can be a bit messy as it's hard to structure and manage relationships. Yeah, that's a true statement, Mike. So I've certainly, I'm careful to about how I use it, but you can definitely use web apps as extenders. They can be used for products. I've used them in the e-commerce template. Let's see. So when you go to this fashion shop, I use web apps to extend the product detail. So if I get down to this guy, so as you know, this description, you can put it here, but if you want to have tabs like this on the bottom, you can't do that with the existing layout. So this is a web app called Product Details. You insert the product ID, and it goes and gets it and allows you to do this additional details, sizing info, and it keeps track of these reviews. So definitely it's an extension, but you have to have good instructions for your clients to show them how to use that. So Phil asks, can the author contribute in a no-touch scenario from an admin perspective? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Phil. Can you clarify? Do you mean, can the author log in and enter his own blog post? Is that what you mean? Yeah, that's possible, Phil. You'd basically give them you'd have to have a secure zone set up, and they'd have a user ID and password, and you could just have a web app. Well, hang on, that's a blog post. So the short answer is no. They'd have to be able to log in. Sorry. If it was a web app blog, you could do it, but if it's the blog module, no, you got to do it from the admin side. All right. So the next module I want to cover is events, the event module. So for me, the strengths I noted, I like the notification email and the follow-up emails. I like that whole structure. I like that it offers capacity management. So if it's limited to 20 people, you have facilities to put different messages up or close up registration or say only 2 seats left and that kind of stuff. On the weakness side, the payment options are not great. So I tend to just as who said that? Mike said you can use a web app to extend the functionality of the events module. So we'll have a matching events web app, and that's where we can have multiple payment options. We've even done multiple registrations. So instead of just the one person getting registered and him getting all the emails, I've actually done a page where they could register up to 10 people and they all got the notification emails and the follow-up emails and such. It does a bit of an AJAX registration for the additional names. You can have different payment levels and all the rest of that, but you're using a web app to extend it. And the connector there is the booking ID. So you have to have a field in the events web app where you enter the booking ID, where you've set up the follow-up emails and the capacity management and such. Yeah, Penny just says she does that. I think that's fairly common, and it's fairly well documented, either in BC Gurus or on the BC Academy. But it's a way to use the system. I think it's fairly powerful as CRM stuff goes, and for event management, I think it's pretty good. The web app connection there is the one way to bypass the weakness, which is the payment options. And if it's all the same price, well, then you can do it all from the booking module. But if you want to have multiple levels and multiple registrations, even, then you have to do some customization with a web app. Anybody else doing anything funky with an events module that they'd like to bring forward? Somewhere they figured out to overcome a weakness? And does anybody not understand what I mean when I say you use a web app to extend the functionality of the booking module? Do I need to show you an example of that? Okay. So that, again, that road is pretty well traveled. I think if you've been working with BC for any length of time, you've used that scenario to overcome the weakness for the events module. It was only just this last year where I discovered through Ajax I could register multiple people to the event. And this particular client wanted to have capacity management, and they couldn't just have one guy register with 10 guests. They wanted the emails, the follow-up emails, to go out to every person that was registering, not just the one guy who registered. So just with a bit of Ajax, I just basically run a loop, and it registers however many people this guy has provided names for, or that person has provided names for. All right. Well, the next module is photo galleries. And I guess I'll share the screen again just because no one else is showing their smiling face anyway. So photo gallery, I think is pretty good for a few reasons. So the strengths I like is that it shows any image in a given folder. So all your client has to do is get an image to a folder, and it will show up in the photo gallery. That part of it I like. There are some weaknesses. The default layout is horrible, table-based, and not great. The default lightbox is not responsive. There's some code for workaround on that, but it involves some custom JavaScript, and it just does not work very well, frankly. Let's see, I see a chat message came through there. So Mary indicated she didn't know that you could extend bookings with a web app. Really, it comes down to doing whatever you want in the web app, Mary, and then connecting it to the booking module with the booking ID, and that's how you manage the subscription, if you will, or how many people are subscribed to a given event. So again, if you're interested in that, check out BC Gurus, check out BC Academy. There's lessons on both platforms that will show you how to do it. So back to the photo gallery. Again, the default layout's not great. It's table-based. The default lightbox is not good. And even, frankly, uploading images, you have to do it either through the file manager or using FTP. Once you get it to the folder, that's good. But if you can give your clients some simple instructions, keep them around this size, upload them to this folder, it's kind of self-managing. So there are some workarounds. Sizing is another issue. So there's nothing stopping your client from uploading a 10 megabyte image and then wondering why the page loads slowly. You can use action equal thumbnail to prevent it getting on the page that big, but it still takes up space, still takes processing time. So it's obviously better if you can train them to get their images down to a decent size. So for some workarounds, on the App Store, there's Cropper, which is free, and there's Image Desmin, which is $49 per site. So those are a couple of tools. The free one you can certainly load, and that allows your customer to take an image and crop it to the size they want and make sure it's of a given size. Image Desmin allows you to do a bit more. There's also for management, there's Photo Album Pro. I don't want to turn this into an App Store commercial, but Photo Album Pro, which looks like decent software for managing a photo album. And I personally use Liquid for output. So I've got some Liquid script in any of these BC Gurus templates, certainly for the last number of couple of 3 years. There's some custom Liquid code that outputs the photo gallery in a format that is understandable by, I was using Magnifique for a while, and then in the last few, this is Light Gallery. So it's a jQuery plugin. I like Light Gallery because it seems to be more modern to me, and it handles different sizes better than Magnifique does, at least in my opinion. So that's my workaround for photo galleries. I like the gallery itself. I can show a client how to get images up to a given folder, and then it just displays everything, including with pagination. So that's my opinion of the photo gallery. What do you folks think? So Mike says, let's see, Mary says, photo gallery is good and the CSS code to make it responsive is pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad. I just use the liquid and then feed it into a jQuery plugin. Mike says only accessing using the ID is a standard pain in the butt for him. Yeah, so when you put this photo gallery on a page, you have to provide the photo gallery ID. You can't use a named identifier. So a bit of a pain that way. You've got to show your clients how to go get the ID if they're going to be inserting it on a page. For my stuff here, I try and make it easy by having an assign statement right above the code that calls the module. So it's just one place to change the number, but it's still a place where they have to change the number. Agreed. Yeah, Mike, that's one of the changes I made in this one, where this Mike indicates he uses some custom liquid and typically uses a background image with a cover, with background size equals cover to get a more consistent layout. And that's actually the change I made in this particular template. So if you're to look at these in the console, you'll see that this says style equal background image, and that's where this image is placed. And I've got some specific sizing on these containers, and that does definitely give better results. In some of the earlier templates, I was not doing that, and it relied on either the action equals thumbnail, which can be problematic, and it relied on your client not to put weirdly shaped photos on there. In this case, it just doesn't matter. So it gives, if you put position center, or you can use bottom or top, whatever makes sense for your client's images, but it does a really nice job of giving you a nice, consistent, good looking layout. And then when they click, then they get the whatever shape the image actually is. I don't think I have any of an odd size on that page. Can't remember if this one is, yeah, you can see this one is tall and this one is wide. But in this view, you can't really tell. That's what Mike's talking about with background images. So a little bit more work to get it to look good with background images as far as sizing the containers and all the rest of it. But once you do, the payoff is definitely there. As a matter of course, give me a percentage, 25, 50, 75, or 100. What percentage of your clients are actually using photo galleries? My suspicion is it's on the lower end. But so Barbara's about half. Yeah, David's about 20, 25. Yeah, Liz is less than that. So obviously it depends on your industry and all the rest of it. But for the sites that I build for Chicago Digital and such, and for my own clients before that, it was pretty low percentage. So Peter says he finds the module works very well for sites with many images and many galleries. The FTP upload allows for nice folder structure. The ID allows for the photo gallery to be associated with a web app. That's true. And with an add-in of something like Galleria, brilliant. He says all his clients use it. And Mike's used photo galleries in his e-commerce site to extend the photos on a product. So as you know, on e-commerce, you can only have X many photos of a given product. So by using a photo gallery ID in one of your custom fields, you can have literally as many images as you want. That's what he's implying there. That's a good use case for sure. If you have an e-commerce site that where they just need to have more images than that, for sure. So I've definitely used that for. I've used that same image gallery here. So this is that same light gallery for the poplets. But once you have, is it 8 poplets or 6? I think it's 8 poplets. Once you have X many poplets, you can't extend that any further. So Mike has used that to allow for 10, 20, 50, however many are necessary there. Good use case for that. So Aaron says if you need more, then the poplets appear. He thinks it's 10. He adds more via the import method. So how are you doing that, Aaron? I'm not quite clear on what you're doing there. Oh, just comma separated. Okay. Yep, fair enough. Liz asks, is there a way to get a list of galleries for a menu? Interesting. Where did I put that? I don't know if that's available through module data. I would suspect I'd have to go look, Liz. I think you could probably get it with module data, and then massage it that way. I know I don't have the builder loaded on this particular template site, so. Well, actually, let me. So this BC API discovery, and here's a surprise, it logged me out. So Liz, you've been using a web app to get the IDs for the galleries, like hand entering them and then using that for output. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, so it looks like it's available here, Liz. Photo galleries, as far as you use that BCI, that API discovery tool. So it looks like you can get it with module data. You'd have to play a little bit, but basically it's there. So. Okay, anything else on photo galleries? I like them for when I need that functionality. I think it works really well. And that's about all I got to say about it. This is that nice editor, by the way. I'll just put that in the chat, a link to that. So this is Code Productions. They've got this open beta for this nice editor. I mentioned that earlier. So the news module is next. Strengths, you got from to dates, real simple event announcements. You can classify your news for organization. It's got some, you can of course use expiry dates. So it can show until the expiry date, then it's gone. On the weakness side, not much in the way of options, pretty basic module. Your layout options are real minimal. It's best for just simple news. So I certainly have used the news module. I wondered for you folks if you're using them as well, or you're just using a web app. Does anybody know that there is a news module? On the plus side, it's really easy for your clients to figure out because it's not really overly complicated. So if they need to do is just put a name and a short description in. It's a pretty decent tool. Yeah, so Penny extends it with a web app. And David uses web apps because they often want an image to go along with it. Yeah, that's fair enough. This says web app, more options. I guess I would have to tend to agree. If you want anything beyond a name and a description, it's probably better just to use a web app. Much better control. Enough said. Media downloads. So for strengths, I had easy to change the content of a media item. So I definitely have some clients that they like to upload PDFs that their end clients can download, and they do change them. So if you, with some simple training, you can show them how to just upload and replace the current one. It just changes everywhere. So I like that aspect of it. Easy to manage when things have to change. The default output is pretty decent. I don't mind it. From a weakness perspective, it requires custom code. The one weakness I find is it requires custom code to open as a preview in a new tab. That's the one pain in the butt. So you end up having to put the code on the page and basically pulling that out and then putting a target equals blank on it. So Barbara uses it to put email newsletters so that you can edit it without going into the email newsletter side. Yeah. And yeah, the admin interface for the media downloads is horrible. You have to enter the name, save it first before you can upload. It is rather horrible. But once you figure out how to use it, I think it works pretty well. Other than I have a lot of clients that want the PDF to open up in a new tab, not for download, but to preview in a new tab. And that does require a little bit of custom code. Again, once you pull the code across and you have it, you just use that. But overall, not that bad of a module. And it does allow them to find what they're looking for, click upload, find it on their local computer. Once it's done, it's changed. They don't have to worry about finding all the locations of that on the website, what page it's on, what it's classified on. They just have to replace the content. So Jack asks, what happens to the media download on the server? Will they continue to take up space? I think you're correct in that they continue to take up space. So what he's saying, if I have PDF1 and then I replace that with PDF2, what happens with PDF1? Is it still there taking up space? And I believe it probably is. And I don't know how you delete them. So Jack, if that's a concern, I would contact BC support and ask them what goes on with that. If that counts towards their storage, if they're getting storage warnings, that could be the reason why. So I'd be interested to hear the answer on that, actually. Cool. Anybody doing anything interesting or funky with media downloads? Or is it just pretty basic usage? Okay. Next, I have the comments module. So I definitely have used the comments module. I've used it for blog posts. I've even used it for reviews. So I should have just kept sharing that screen. So when you go to this site and you look at reviews, this is the latest e-commerce template, the fashion wear, Arrowwear, fashion wear, and this reviews is actually using the comments module. So they can come here, put their star rating in, name, email address, there's the caption on there, comments, and then it shows up over here. So I definitely have used it, and it works pretty darn well, I think. I've also used it, of course, for blog posts, actual blog posts, and I find it works pretty well. Once the one downside is you can run into some spam issues. If the spammers find you, then you might have to do something about it. I have had some clients that were using the comment module in their blog posts. They got discovered by a spammer, and we had to go to discuss in the end to stop that. But I think the anti-spam mechanisms from BC, I think BC learns or updates their anti-spam measures. So if you can afford to wait just a little bit, I think the anti-spam gets better on the comment module. I do like that you can set up automation rules. So you can set up so posts or comments are automatically posted. Some will require validation. You can delete comments. You can do those kinds of things. So I like the comment module if you're going to use comments. If I'm being completely frank, I almost always use discuss. So I wonder what you guys do. I just find discuss is straightforward, easy to use, and rather ubiquitous. So Penny doesn't use comments. I've got lots of clients that made that choice as well. Too much spam, yeah. And part of me wonders how much, I mean, it was used originally for backlinks and all the rest of that stuff. I'm not sure that's such a factor anymore. I think it's was so overused that I think it's gone way down the scale as far as value for cross-linking and all the rest of that stuff. That's my opinion anyway. So from my perspective, other than, like I say, the rating on this latest e-commerce template, which I thought was a pretty cool use for the comments module, but for straight blogs, I tend to use discuss. Okay, next one would be FAQs. For my clients or the sites that I've done where they want to have FAQs, I find this module pretty powerful. Relatively simple entry, questions, answers. If there's a weakness, you know, it takes a little bit of custom code to get something decent. Although frankly, I just feed it through, we use Foundation, so I just feed it through the standard Foundation output, or I've got a couple of jQuery plugins that we use for it, and I can feed the output into that fairly easily. But from a management perspective, from having my clients enter their questions and answers, I find it works pretty well. Jack indicates that Discuss was bought out in December, so he wondered if there's any changes coming. I hadn't heard that, so I don't really know. It'll be interesting to see. I'd hate to have to go back to all the sites I put Discuss on and do something different. So FAQs, again, is anybody really using it? It's a bit of a niche, but for those customers that want FAQs, I think it works pretty well. The one thing I like, it was Brian Mulholland did a really nice custom job on an advanced FAQ module that I think works pretty well. And there's a link to it there in the chat. You can find it on BC Academy if you just search for advanced FAQ module. What's nice about it is there's like a menu in the sidebar and it scrolls with the page. So that's what I like about it. Yeah, Mike uses FAQ, but with custom code. I think to get anything real, decent, I think you have to do a bit of custom code with it. But from a management perspective for your end clients, I think it's pretty easy for them to use. So. Okay, the next one is ad rotators. So I'd be interested in knowing how many people actually use them, and if you are you using it for what it's initially intended for, or are using it for the common use, which is A/B testing of content. So I've used it for rotating affiliate links. I've used it for showing random content. So you could do that with a web app, but I like the ad rotator because of the reporting. You get usage reports, so how many people are seeing what and how many people are clicking through on it. So I tend to use ad rotators for A/B testing more so than I do for like showing ads. I'm wondering if you guys are doing the same. So Barbara does use it for its intended use and for other uses. That's cool. So if you have a client that wants to have ads on their site, affiliate or otherwise, and doesn't want to have them all listed, say if they got 5 ads, they don't want them listed all down the sidebar, it's a great way to randomly display one of the 5. Yeah, Jack, that was, I think that showed up on BC Gurus a long time ago, and you just put your content in there basically, and it takes care of giving you of displaying it randomly to your visitors, and then you can go view the reports later and find out what kind of actions people were taking on it. So it's pretty cool that way. if I'm using it, that's largely what I use it for, is the A/B testing. I tried it on my own site for a little while. I had a couple of affiliate links I was playing around with, and I never got real serious about it, so it didn't go very far, and I eventually took them off. But I don't like ads in general. I guess I should front things by saying that. So it was tough for me to try it, and when it didn't, when things didn't seem to happen, I was real quick to take it off. So. Okay, the last one, and it'll be a quick one, I think, is the forums module. And I was being a bit glib when I said strengths, not much, weaknesses, lots. And my workaround is to find something else. So I'd be interested to know if anybody's actually using the forum module and if they've had reasonable success with it. And if you're not using the forum module, but you still want forums, have you found a decent third-party add-in that works? And the silence, oh, there we go. So Barbara is using it, but it does take a lot of time to make it responsive. Yeah, the layout is challenging. Even the login stuff, the fact that it's really a separate login from any secure zones and stuff is a bit painful. Probably not if you don't have a secure zone, but when I have tried it in the past, my clients didn't understand why they had to log into two different things. Yeah, Mike says if you do need a forum, there are a lot of sites you can just use as a subdomain. You have an example of that, Mike, just for folks that don't necessarily know what you mean? I haven't looked at forums for a long time. I don't really have an example, but. Forum, Penny. Forums, forum. In my opinion, it's a fairly low use module, but oh, I know. I'm supposed to say forums. Is that what you mean, Penny? So Mike says IPB is the classic, and you'd set it up as forums.mysite.com. So if you have a use case for a forum, that's a good place to start. Thanks, Mike. I should have got. I was hoping Steve Johnson was on. I could have used his Scottish accent to figure out how he says forums. That's about as close as I can get to English, Penny. Yeah, so that's kind of the way I thought it was going to go with forums. Yeah, close enough. Yeah. Thanks for being gracious on that. And that's really about all I had on modules. I was just kind of hoping we could talk about it a bit, and just like with the forums there, if there's something that somebody's doing, and in the A/B testing, just kind of throw some ideas out there and might give somebody an idea how they could use these things. So I do need your help for next week, and I'm glad we have a few minutes left here. So next week, we're supposed to be doing a Sandpile on parameter passing. So I was sitting today trying to think about what I could talk about, and I'm having a real tough time with a use case or an example of parameter passing. So by parameter passing, I mean custom parameters where if I look at passing custom parameters to modules. So you can use this technique on any module which uses a named parameter syntax. The samples they give on the developer documentation are not great, but it basically involves passing a custom parameter. So as for instance, they've given an example of using a product feature, module _ product feature list, and they're passing some custom parameters. And then you can use those parameters in the output. So, what I'm after from you folks is, have you got a use case where you think a custom parameter might help you achieve what you're after? So you could do something like, if I'm on page A and I'm going to the detail page of a web app, would it help to know something? Is there some information from page A that you'd like to pass to the detail layout of the web app? That's what this whole parameter passing is about. And I'm just having such a hard time trying to think of a use case. So if you have some ideas, if you could send them to me. There's my email address in the chat there. Just send me a description of the example. I'll try and work out the details. If not, if I can't think of any other details, we might have to have something, maybe an open meeting next week, or maybe I'll talk about parameters next week, because there's really not much. The examples they give on the docs there are horrible, and I just haven't done much with these custom parameters. I've done a little bit, but not much. Yeah, passing to a custom template. So Mike, what kind of information are you passing to the custom template? So Liz uses them in drop downs to filter web apps. So like a sidebar menu, is that what you mean, Liz? So as you drill down on the sidebar, you're keeping track of what level you're on, and that's what you're passing, and then filtering based on that. Is that the idea? Yeah, Mike says it's kind of a one-off solution. So where I've used it, it's been kind of a one-off, and it's not really something, if you bring forward, you go, like, who else would need that? It's that kind of custom thing. So Liz says sort of use it in a class enrollment system to sort students' reports by day and teacher and stuff. So yeah, kind of a one-off thing. So again, if you can think of something or an example that would be decent to share, if you can send it to me, and I'll try and consolidate them over the week. And if in the end I don't have enough to go with, we'll have a bit of an open meeting next week, or I'll find a different subject to talk about. And that is all I have for today. So hopefully you got something out of the whole module conversation. Again, I wish it was different. I wish we could come up with a nice list of things we'd like to see, and we could send that to some folks at BC, but just not going to happen. So hopefully through some discussion, it sparked an idea or two about how you could use these modules in a different way than you already are, or you can have a workaround for a limitation you've discovered. So thank you for your time this week, and we will talk to you next week. Oh, Mike's, just to clarify the BC backup thing. Oh, you're talking about being able to export blog posts from BC to move between sites. Yeah, okay. So BC backup would create an XML file. Well, I guess I would think if it will import an XML file, if you can just get it into that format, that might be enough. So I'll talk to Karam and see if a guy could do that. Yeah, the import files in a typepad or WordPress structure, but it's just horrible. I've yet to get it to work properly in any meaningful way, like to get all the information in that I need to get in. So Liz wants to know, does anyone know how to bypass the favorites confirmation? Liz, if you, I mean, in the last 2 or 3 templates, there's some level of favoriting going on there, and there's definitely no confirmation in that. So I'm not sure what challenge you're having there, but if you have access to BC Guru's templates there, the last few where there's some favoriting, I can't remember which one it is. Certainly the destinations ones, the travel one. If you're logged in to a secure zone, you can favorite a given review or a given trip, and that uses the favorite functionality, and there's no confirmation there. So hopefully that'll help you. Penny asks, does anyone know if the usage stats in the admin are accurate? I have no opinion on that, Penny. Sorry. So Liz, just to cover that, I'm using an Ajax submit for that favoriting, and that might be why I'm able to bypass the confirmation. So if you have access to the template, you can go have a look at the code and see if that gives you your answer. All right, thanks everybody.